What's up, y'all? It's Izzy. Today I just wanted to talk about some of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh cards of all time. A lot of these cards are games that really defined my earlier years of playing. Now, I've been out of the game for a couple years now, but I still collect and play casually with some of my friends. Alright, so they're not in any particular order, so I'm gonna just start from the top. This one, pt1, the Time Lord. This card right here, I really love because it always got me out of a jam, a tight situation. Especially back in the days where everything was just, blow up your opponent's field and keep them from doing anything. This card would shut that down because it can't be destroyed by card effects or by battle, and you don't take any battle damage from it. And on top of that, when it battles, you can return all the monsters on the field to the player's hand, and your opponent take 300 points of damage for each monster returned that way, except this is the only card that remains on the field. It stays on the field until your standby phase, I believe. Yep. And then you shuffle it back into the deck. Another cool thing about it is that you don't have to tribute for its summon if you don't have many monsters on the field. But that's only for the normal summon. You can't set it that way. But, it's still a pretty cool card. Alright. The next one. Ooh. Rainbow Karibo. This is another one that has gotten me out of a lot of jams because I normally don't run hand traps when I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I still run regular traps because I like their effects, and generally my monsters provide enough presence on the field to keep my opponent occupied and guessing what I'm doing. I like to run like very random strategies that just kind of mesh archetypes and some of my favorite cards together. And this card being activated from my hand, keeping an opponent's monster from attacking. So I'm gonna read off its effect. When an opponent monster declares an attack, you can target that monster and equip this from your hand to that target. It cannot attack. So unless they have something to chain to it and blow it up, or change what the monsters what the monster is doing on the field, then they can't really do shit. Not to mention, if your opponent declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from the graveyard. If it's summoned this way, banish it when it leaves the field. So it offers that extra little bit of protection. Alright, next card. If you see a little bit of a theme going here, I'm a defensive player. I mean, I don't play purely defense, but I go from defense to offense. I set up my defensive presence and overwhelm my opponent with that, and then I just hit him with some crazy ass offensive moves. This is another card that I ran in multiple of my different decks, my warrior decks, rank 4. It's a very good monster for rank 4 engines. If you just need something to take a hit, or if you want something to stay on the field, this is a good option. When your opponent declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. When it's targeted for an attack, you can discard one card. This card cannot be destroyed by that battle. So it also lets me set up the graveyard if I need to, which is cool. I've fitted in a couple different strategies that I ran in the past. Graveyard heavily focused decks. Ojama. I know it sounds weird, but getting the vanilla Ojamas in the graveyard makes my Tri-White active, which lets me special summon 3 of them. It also can send Ultra Magic to the graveyard, will let me search 3 Ojama, so I'm not losing anything in that instance. And it, he's a body on the field. Plus, it opens up the opportunity for rank 4 plays or synchro summons. Because with my Ojama deck, I run the Raccoon Engine and Obedient Schooled, and there's some level 1 and 2 tuners that Obedient School can target that I can take advantage of with this. Alright. Next we got Infernity Avenger. Now this was a staple in pretty much every graveyard-centric deck that I've played in the past. There was a Yu-Gi-Oh game on the PlayStation 3 that I had called Yugioh. I want to say it's Millennium Duels. And on that game, it had a very limited card pool unless you paid for the individual packs and stuff like that. And I was like, fuck that. I already paid for the game. I'm not paying for cards in the game. I'll just, you could also grind and get free packs to get all the cards that are accessible in the game. And this, a good bit of the Infernity engine was available. And with the trap card, it would you discard 2 cards and send 2 Infernities from your deck to the graveyard. This was sent. I would usually send 2 of these or a combination of one of the other Infernity monsters, which could be play extenders. And it was a good way to set my field up for XYZ plays. It's a tuner, so of course you can sync with it. It's a dark type, so there was a lot of dark type synchro monsters that was available in the game that, it let me do some pretty cool things with that. His effect is when a monster you control except Infernity Avenger is destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster and sent to the graveyard while you have no cards in your hand. That's the important thing to remember. You can't have any monsters in your hand in order to bring him back, but you can't have any cards in your hand. I think I said monsters. You can special summon this card from your graveyard. In that case, the level of this card equals the level of the destroyed monster. So if I got a level 4 monster on the field and I crash it into something and it gets destroyed, or it was a set monster that was destroyed, I could special summon my 2 Infernity Avengers from my graveyard as level 4 monsters and either synchro summon or XYZ summon on my next turn if, they don't have any other plays to make after that initial attack. There were some times I splashed into higher level decks and stuff like that so I can access the rank 7 and 8 pools and decks that probably shouldn't be able to access it, but that was one of the reasons I really loved this card. Alright, Scrap Iron Scarecrow. This is a card that I liked because you could use it multiple times, assuming that it wasn't destroyed, returned, banished, or anything along those lines. Basically, anytime your opponent declares an attack once during the turn, you could flip this card face up to negate that attack. And then you would set it back face down. So every turn you had a free negation on an attack, of course, if it was uninterrupted. And it was a pretty popular card. It's made popular by the series 5Ds. Yusei ran it, and I get that they didn't want they didn't want him just spamming it on the show, but whenever he used it, it was one of those moments like, yes. So it was a card that I was eventually drawn to because it's got me a lot of tight spots. Actually, all the cards I went through so far have been just kind of like backup options because a lot of people play very offensive focused play styles when they build their decks. And just to have a defensive card come out of nowhere and kind of change the game state, it was a fun thing to do. Also, not to mention, all it does is negate an attack. So, even if they did have like an MST or something to remove it from the field, they had to decide whether or not it was worth wasting it on that or saving it for a power play. That's one of the good thing I like about each of these cards I've showed so far. It was like the my I usually would draw my opponent into a situation where he had to choose whether or not it was worth getting rid of that card. I think out of all of them, Infernity Avenger was probably the most targeted one just because of how consistently I could re-special summon it simply by having no hands, having the monster being destroyed by battle. Sometimes I rock out with like one monster, and when my opponent would attack it, I get three of them, and go into strong XYZ plays or synchro plays. Just going from there.